How are you?
Yes, how you are there? Yeah, sure.
That's the reason. So we don't know how to harass us. No, I just anticipated for most probably you guys are going to do more. We are going to order more books. That's correct. Yeah. Oh, by the way.
Very quiet. Sorry, she was
Was I? Yeah, I think I was.
Senti vai, senti so.
Lebenswillen vom Left.
From left, from this side.
Ja, das ist
Why are we meeting in Johannesburg and not in Cuba? I'm telling you, it's so funny. Your honor. Sure.
Don't stop this one. Yes, yes, no, this one. This one.
Number one.
Yes.
Yeah, but you have to be kind to your boss. That's one who does all the work on my behalf. Let her better come here. Yes. Otherwise she's going to, I don't think, miss me.
You can see the gentleman behind you.
Can you see us all in the background? Don't worry.
And then the vertical challenge one as well.
Vertical challenge. This is the only thing here we have. Don't blind them with your flashlight.
But she's so photogenic, we cannot. I'm so pretty, the man.
This side.
We need many. Okay?
You will still to write your name.
That's all. What? Oh, let them run me.
Is everyone here? Thank you, everybody. Look, you know what? We want to just apologize for the bit of a delay. You know, we are still consulting with the Premier. You know, it's an opportunity which, if we had our own chance, we could go on and on, you know, with her. We apologize. I just want to find out if every one of us has got a copy of the book. If you got a copy of the book also comes with a synopsis. What we've done is we've prepared a synopsis for journalists. The book basically concerns the uprisings of 1976 as they took place in Musupatsila High School in Krugersdorp, Valley City now. In particular, it also contains the details of the activities of the SRC members who actually took Musupatsila head on into the June 16 riots. But you will know from the synopsis that the riots in Krugersdorp took place from the 17th of June as opposed to the 16th. The synopsis also gives you quite a lot of detail relating to the detention of the first SRC. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
The book also gives you details relating to the detention of the first SRC. It gives you detail with regard to the detention of the first SRC. Now, the first SRC, just to give you a breakdown, the first SRC was established around March in 1976. I was part of that SRC. There were 8 or about 9 of us. Some of us disagree about the exact number. The chairperson of that SRC was Temba Hlachwayo. Temba Hlachwayo is this gentleman that you see here at the start of this book, right? That's Temba Hlachwayo. He was the chairperson of the first SRC. The deputy president was Laki Khali. He's also featured here. You heard his story as well here. But unfortunately, Mulasheki Khali has left us. He passed away, unfortunately, after coming back from Northern Ireland. The third, member of the SRC, most importantly, was Rodney Tsuletsane. This is Rodney Tsuletsane. Rodney and myself were close friends. We have grown up together from that time till today, as you see us. We won't tell you how long that has been. He was our secretary. The 3 of them are the ones who ended up being the youngest accused in the Bethal trial. Now, the Bethal trial, you will again see the synopsis, consisted of a whole range and number of individuals from throughout this country. Most of these apartheid trials were constructed in that fashion, where they were supposed to be seminal, trials and show-off trials, in which incorporated people from all over. We have written this book in particular with reference to only the people that are associated with the Bethal trial from Krugersdorp, because that is the story we can tell. We can't tell anybody else's story. We also want to highlight the fact that this is the first edition. We are in a position, if other people were also involved in the Bethal trial, to come forward and to assist us in actually doing a second edition. So in other words, we've actually opened the gates and the possibilities for them. But just in terms of the Bethal trial, Bethal trial started on the 17th of January 1978. It ended at the end of June 1979. It took place over exactly an 18-month period. It was presided over by a judge called Kelly Lewis. Now, anyone who knows the name Kelly Lewis will know what basis Kelly Lewis was. Kelly Lewis wasn't a judge who was sympathetic to apartheid structures. He himself had a certain hatred for people. He had a particularly serious hatred for black activists. And if you look at all of the cases that Kelly Lewis has presided over, he's one judge who has passed the most death penalties. These people that you see here were at risk at the time of having the death penalty passed against them. Kelly Lewis has sentenced a number of MK cadres. In one Pretoria trial, I actually covered it in the book. He also remember sentenced, if you recall, the Aiken of 4. He sentenced the Aiken of 4 on the basis of tenuous evidence, which was to a very large degree circumstantial. His decision was then reversed by the Supreme Court of Appeal. The Supreme Court of Appeal ordered that the Aiken of case must be retried. But what had transpired, at least fortunately for us, was that this was now around 1989. And I think the prosecution had no strength and stamina to go back and retry those killers. So that case, that's where it ended. So I'm simply saying that was the judge, that was the nature of the person. For you to read the record of the Bethal trial is really a horror story. First of all, not only did it take place behind closed doors, the Bethal trial took place in Canada. It's one of very, very few cases in South Africa, even under apartheid, that was ever held behind closed doors in complete secrecy. No family member was allowed to come in. No journalists were allowed to come in except through the permit of Butzier, who was the commissioner of police at the time. No family members, it was only the lawyers and Kelly Lewis who essentially were in charge. So you can imagine, the fact that we call it this one trial that took place in complete darkness in South Africa. We think that with our book, we are at least opening the curtain to show you some light into what took place in the Bethal trial. Just to come back, that's Rodney Tsuletsane, who was the secretary. This is Biza Matsubane. Biza Matsubane was accused number 18. He was the last accused. His story in terms of how the evidence against him was not necessarily exactly the same with the rest of the others, because he was working for an NGO at the time, an educational NGO. And you had all these old ladies who had been taken by the police, who had been made to come and testify against him. It is interesting to hear all these old ladies saying, he used to come and tell us 1 + 1 is not necessarily 2. You must be careful about what's going on there. Look, politically, and they ended up saying, instead of teaching us, he was politicizing us, effectively. That is, by and large, some of the evidence. That's not all. We're making it feel light, but it was more serious than that. And that is, Bramite Matsubane. Bramite Matsubane was our man who came to show us the light. He already came from Robben Island in 1976 when he first visited our school. We relied quite heavily on him in terms of our political awareness. he took us as the SRC under his umbrella. And this is why all of the testimony in the Bethal trial relating to him, Kelly just wanted to know, where was your Bramike at the time? Because they fully believe that he is the one that, in essence, stoked the whole uprising in the West Island. That is Bramike. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll stop there for now. And sorry, this is Lawrence Tlogwa. I haven't seen Lawrence for almost 10 years. He is one of the key defense witnesses, and we deal with his evidence extensively in the book. Lawrence's evidence was that of someone way beyond his years. If you read the way Lawrence was conducting himself insofar as answering questions and dealing with Judge K. Lewis as well as Hasbro, because the prosecutor was Hasbro, it is amazing the depth for someone who was 21 years of age at the time. Lawrence Tlogwa was 21 years of age. He is now with Umsobovu. You know, he's the national marketing manager of Umsobovu, now into the new group. That is Lawrence. But lastly, before I sit, I just want to again extend a great deal of gratitude to our lovely Gauteng #1 president. That is the Honorable Premier, Nomvula Mokonyane. We are exceedingly proud of her. I just also want to tell you this, that Premier Nomvula, when these events were taking place in this group, and we were SRC members, she was in primary school, probably. She was probably in primary school. And she came into prominence, you know, in her own regard from around the 80s, 81, 82, and so on. So I think we also pride ourselves in having walked the path that she saw fit to follow. I'm saying it with humility. I'm saying it with humility. This is our Honorable MEC for Arts and Culture, Umembata, and in essence, they are largely hosting us because today the book is being adopted, as you have seen from the media statement, that it essentially says that it is now being adopted by Gauteng government as one of its political heritage collection put into that portfolio. So it's no mean honor for us. It is an exceedingly great honor. Thank you very much. Just in terms of the program that we drafted, I drafted the program and I stated everything here is a brief, but I know I wasn't brief. We said in the program we will just call, you know, Honorable MEC to just give a small brief statement, and then after that, Michael Matsubane will then give a brief statement also on behalf of the authors, and then hand over the book to the Premier. Then the final statement, and this is protocol, and that's how it works. It has to be Honorable Premier of Gauteng, thank you.
I think I'll be audible. I don't need a mic.
Yes.
Honorable Premier, Comrade Nomvula Mokonyane, authors of the Bethal trial story, writers and journalists, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I think I'm so excited today to be part of this August occasion of launching the book of the Bethal trial. Our past history of increasing racial segregation and repressive laws is today an incredible story of eventuality. A journey through massive obstacles towards the creation from the tremendous diversity of a single nation whose dream of unity and common purpose is now capable of realization. Just as it is envisaged in the Freedom Charter and other positions and documents of the ruling party and mandate. The journey, colleagues, which takes us towards this free, non-racial and non-sexist and democratic society has made us distinct in many from the others and from the other nations. A nation of sad but also of proud history. Please allow me to extend to each one of you present here my warmest greetings, as I've already started, and join our Premier to welcome you to the pre-launch of the function as long as awaited book of this Bethal trial, which features the political story which ranks among the longest political trials in South Africa. Joining many others to make an essential reading on how the state institution and resources can be exploited to pursue political agendas at the expense of human rights. Life under the apartheid and the noble role played by the 1976 UN uprising, especially in Bethal, in Krugersdorp, and many other parts of our country, and community organizations in the struggle of freedom and democracy, have also covered adequately in the book, and so is the role played by the Black consciousness philosophy within that time. For us in Gauteng provincial government, and specifically the Department of Sports and Culture and Recreation and Heritage, the launch of the Bethal trial reinforces our view that African children must be taught relevant and politically correct history in order to assist a sense of pride to our people, to teach our people about their own history, where we come from and where we are heading to. That is what makes this day a very special one. Comrade Premier, I sometimes wonder why we still lack sufficient public awareness about the importance of heritage in our country. Our history, our heritage and cultures, according to some people, are still regarded as primitive and uncivilized by today's standards. You will therefore agree with me, Comrade Premier, that this is far from the truth, and I have no doubt that this book is really assisting us in terms of that. To some people, this must just be one of those functions, yet it carries with it a lot of importance and emotions of where we come from as people and as a nation. The reason why we launch and support this book to celebrate our heritage, because it plays such an important role in shaping perceptions of who we are as people in the eyes of the humanity. Without a sense of identity, we are nothing as a people. Comrade Premier, allow me to say the collection will also assist to regain our culture, our dignity, our power to survive and to develop us and our children for the future. In the spirit of regeneration and unity and diversity, this collection is bringing about a society proud of its history and heritage. I think you've also seen the presenter that when he was presenting, he became proud of what he is as a South African. And from the department point of view, it's going to assist our libraries in order that we have the right collection within the libraries where our children will be able to get this information. This program will also assist the human resource development and to improve skills with creation and values of social networks that enables the coordination and cooperation and strengthen the communities, ultimately the civil society as a whole. I also want to end my address by using this particular event to challenge all writers in here to write in their own mother tongue so that we can be able to explore to our children as to where we come from and the way they can understand books in their own languages. So it is not enough that we get books in other languages without using the indigenous languages. It has been proven that a child that starts to read in his own or her mother tongue first, before learning a second language, progresses better in life and masters a second language better later. Let us write our own South African stories in our own South African languages to keep our different languages alive and future generations proud of our cultural heritage. The time is ripe to incorporate information related to indigenous knowledge systems in all Gauteng libraries, and to make communities aware that this information forms an integral part of collection and development of libraries that need to start building the programs and projects around the information, and to make it accessible to all and make their services more relevant and inclusive. With those few words, we welcome the book as Gauteng Department of Sports and Culture, and hoping that together we can do more. Thank you very much.
Thank you, BBC, and then we will heed your words. We will work with your department, and so far as the book going forward. All you need to do is to simply ask us, what can we do for you? We're just going to have a brief statement from Mike Matsuban. Just to purely read the brief statement and to book hand over symbolically to the Premier, and after which the Premier will speak. But I also want to be that side when the book hand over. To monitor.
Honorable Premier, Comrade Nombola Mokonyane, the Honorable MEC, Comrade Nelisiwe Mata Mchinkulu, distinguished members of the media, on behalf of our group, we are saying a very warm and hearty welcome to this historic and unique press conference. We, as a people from the West End, we come from an angle where we say the failure to document a political history of a people is the highest form of betrayal of the heritage of a nation. If you are not going to write your history, do not blame others when they write that history about you. And write they will, they'll write anything. History never pardons such omissions. With this in mind, some of the individuals in the community of Mohali took it upon themselves to mitigate this ghastly reality by putting pen to paper. Some people call us the terrorism trial trio, because more often than not, they were seeing the three of us running around going to research and so on. These people took a bold challenge and declared that enough is enough. We have to do something about our history. And we are not about to fail our people. As contemporaneous authors, we are ready to take that challenge and answer based on our own personal perspectives, because we are living, we are testimony to all those things that happen. Over and above this, we tend to be giving a comprehensive representation of our history. But as you read the book, we say, where do we begin? And this is where we begin. We want to go further to say thanks to the emergence of visionaries and tested leadership in our area, like our Premier, Comrade Nombola Mokonyane. We call her the number one. We talk about the number one, no, about yeah. And we go on further. I personally, no one has got that right. I call her the girl next door. This is a project whose time has long arrived. The project has to be retrospective and beyond as to fulfill its noble historical objective and obligation of capturing our rich past, present, and future. We would also like to thank, some companies. Most of them are not here yet because we only knew about the venue very late. People who are buying, companies that are purchasing the book for their staff. Now reading the first page, we said, this book our staff have got to read this. We want to thank them in absentia. They want to contribute their books in libraries and schools. May they prosper in their business. I now wish to hand over the book to the Honorable Bethal. Thank you, colleague. Thank you. Thank you.
Mine is not signed. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Distinguished guests, my fellow brothers from Krugersdorp, Mohale City. As we have heard, these are the guys who have laid the foundation for some of us to emerge. And I think we owe it to men of this caliber who came before some of us, so that we can also be able to embrace the passion, the love, to serve, to sacrifice, but to also suffer for what you believe in. And I must say, just meeting them this morning, walking in here, it brought very exciting memories of where we come from, all of us. I also want to indicate the fact that what is happening here today, the Bethal child story, MEC, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, fits so well in the call that has been made by the state president, President Jacob Zuma, that this term of government must be a moment of renewal. A moment of renewal, and in this context for me, it is a moment of renewal in ensuring that we speak about who we are, we tell the stories about who we are, we share with one another, and we celebrate where we're coming from, so that then presently we can recommit ourselves in the same manner as we had committed ourselves previously, through sacrifice, through suffering, because we believed in what we were involved in. And therefore, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the value and significance of documenting our life-changing experiences cannot be overstated. The stories that shaped our course of history must be narrated and be preserved in various forms, so that generations that follow can have an insight about how this nation was molded. South Africa is a nation of great storytellers. We have a rich heritage dating as far back as the days of fireside stories in Zomi, Nenganekwane. It was under such circumstances that the fascinating and heroic narratives were told, whose protagonists were revolutionaries emerging from humble and mundane beginnings. However, the sad reality is that many rich experiences and knowledge have been lost or perished before being imparted or preserved. It is this unfortunate situation we must all strive to prevent especially now that we live in the information highway era. Technology has changed our conditions, and we cannot do that anymore. The culture of reading and writing is slowly dying in our communities, especially in our younger generation. I'm sure those of you who've got young teenagers, you know how they send your SMSs. Sometimes it becomes very difficult to read, because if they want to say great mom, they will say GR8 mom, and you say, what is that all trying to say? But it also indicates the development of another language, a language that is understood by that generation, but a language also that is cool for them. And one of the other things is for us also to adapt in the school environment and make sure that we don't also become a boring adults who want to narrate in a manner that is out of fashion. Facilities such as community libraries are underutilized. In fact, many of these facilities are on the brink of being white elephants. We have bought into the commercial craze of purchasing technological gadgets that promote sometimes unhealthy lifestyles. And we know what some of those unhealthy lifestyles have done to our children and how they've exposed them to things that erode the values and the culture that many of us in this room come from. And as a nation, we need to go back and revive the art of documenting our stories. Stories that were once suppressed, like this particular story, the Bethal tribe. Stories that were not supposed to enjoy the audience of the growing youth. Most of these stories will be lost if, as a society, we do not encourage and promote platforms on which they can be narrated. I believe the time has now come for us to appeal even more to veterans of our struggle, to take the time to document this history so that our youth can have this educational resource to enhance their own development. A rich history of the struggle for our liberation, versed in our own comrades, some of them are here today, who selflessly led this revolution at a high cost. A cost of being isolated, a cost of a possibility of being hanged, a cost of a possibility of you being incarcerated, but also a cost of you possibly becoming an outcast even in your own family. The basic unit that needs to give you the necessary support. But in many instances we know those of us who had availed ourselves, sacrificed our lives, that it had to also take a lot of pain between you and your loved ones. And because you understood the bigger picture and the bigger agenda, you understood that one day they will understand, and they will be the ones who will come and stand by you side by side when all those that you thought were together with yourself may in some instances even disown you, but they will be the ones who are saying, irrespective of that, this is my child, this is my husband, this is my brother, this is my father, and I cannot actually disown my own blood and flesh. And it's that we also need to reflect on as we celebrate our history, that families have also paid dear prices that are very dear. As an activist whose home and primary constituency has always been in Mokgale City, a new name, but the then Krugersdorp, I'm also fully aware of the history detailed in this book. The school itself, Musupatsela High School, is my beloved alma mater. And indeed, what it actually means, I had actually walked on their own footprint. Some of us are generations that took over from them because they've laid a foundation that has made us to be where we are today. It is not because of the opportunities and you knowing people in the liberation movement or in the ANC. It is because you come a long way and you have a history that has been informed by those who came before you. And I really want to honor you for that. I also know that many of them were quite senior to me, and in some instances, we might have not belonged to the same political home, but the identity and the agenda has always been the same. And that is also the rich history of diversity and political tolerance that you may not find in many other communities. And hence the history of Krugersdorp may be undermined, precisely because it has been a peaceful history of political coexistence. Even when there were threats of promoting political intolerance, it took local intervention to prevent that emergence of political violence between the community and the neighbors in our hostels, because we understood that we come a long way with that part of society, and hence I'm saying I am really humbled to have come immediately after you. You have laid a foundation that has brought many of us. Some of them are not here today, some of them have passed on, others are prospering in the private sector, in politics, but indeed, it is quite good that through the Bethal trial story, we are able to remind other people that there are many unsung heroes and heroines of our liberation struggle. The events of June 16, 1976 in Mogale City led to the untimely death of Bonaventure Malaza, the second Musupatsela SRC president, later detained in mid-1976, and who was then killed in police detention. And I'm sure many of us do not actually know that there are many others who died in police detention who are not actually known and their stories are not told. Youngsters who have sacrificed in their own way without actually the glory of the media or the allocation that they are coming from a particular township. They were also part of this big, huge liberation movement. We want, and I want to say as the Premier, I'm indebted to those struggle heroes who have continuously struggled with humility, sacrificed without fear or favor, but most importantly understood the bigger agenda. And we need to celebrate them. And in their memory, go back to our own schools, Musupatsela again, and many other schools that are now in Mogale City. And also many other regions in Gauteng, where the struggle for the liberation of the African people has not been said. Part of what we would want to do as a province, as a provincial government, is to go back and rewrite the history of the people of Gauteng, the people of Everton, the people of Mansfield, the people of Winterfell. They also deserve a space. If somebody doesn't say anything about them, we have a responsibility as this government to speak on their behalf, to bring them back and celebrate and honor the sacrifices that they have made. The Bethal trial for some of the local activists arose out of these same events. The events of the death of Bonaventure Malaza, the arrest of those who ended up being in the trial. This trial, which was one of the many critical apartheid trials that must become part of our recorded heritage, carries vast significance in my community, as well as in our new democracy, but most importantly, in the shaping of the new dispensation. The collation of all trial records for those cases that took place both before and after 1976 must lead to more books, MEC, being written in order to encapsulate the recording of our heroic political past. Our own ECD programs, our own history programs in our schools must also be able to remind the African child, a child who has been born post-1994, that South Africa was never a bed of roses, and that the reconstruction of South Africa cannot be an overnight project, because the project for the destruction of South Africa was a protracted project, and therefore its destruction cannot be an overnight one. So that then we even deal with those that are saying 15 years is too much. But those who have sacrificed and those who have come before us understand that the apartheid agenda and colonization was a protracted agenda that was also rooted in taking away the values and the dignity of the African human being. It can't be correct here today that all of us can say 15 years is too much. We are now dissatisfied. There is no hope in South Africa. I think there is more hope because South Africans have arisen, like it is happening here today, and saying, not in our name. And they are saying it as it is because it is their history, and it's a history that is rich, that they want to leave for generations to come, so that when their great-grandchildren say, where were you? They must be able to say it. And as we move forward, we call on those former activists, leaders of our liberation movement, to hit the clarion call made by our president, that let this be a moment of renewal, a moment of rebuilding the values, a moment of promoting nation building and social cohesion, but also a moment of selling South Africa as a product, South Africa as a jewel, but a jewel that is not a jewel that is created by other people, but our own creation, known by us, molded by us, and owned by us. And I really want to say to my dear brothers, none of them I'm able to call by name. I know that some of you may not know the township language. If I have to call them, I always say bra, so that there's some sense of respect, because indeed I may be the premier, but I remain their little sister. I'm not even of the next generation after them in terms of age. There are many others who come before them that I still call bra and sisters. But one thing that is quite exciting is the commitment we are making as Gauteng provincial government, and the call that let South Africans and residents of Gauteng write about ourselves, so that then we can use this to shape up the political conscience of the African child and the society here in Gauteng, and be able to remind each other that we come a long way. Congratulations, we're going to read this book, we're going to share it with many other people, and as we communicate in our Facebook channels, we're going to talk about this one, and not about many other things. There was a Bethal trial before the Obama mania, so we must also talk about it. There was a Mandela trial before the Obama mania. There was a period of the suppression of the student movement before the Obama mania. So in my Facebook column, you shall no longer find anything about Obama, about Michelle, addressed different from her. But one thing that is important, I think we have to also go back and tell about what we know better, unedited, so that then people can know it, because we have lived it. Good luck and count on me. I'm also going to be a seller of this, and I'm sure I'll be able to make an extra cent and buy a better car. And not take from the taxpayers. Thank you.